Hello and welcome. My name is Tim Moody. I am the Public Information Officer with the Randolph County School System, and I am here with our Superintendent, Dr. Stephen Gainey, and we are doing our monthly interview with Randolph Communications from the desk of. We welcome the opportunity each month to get out in front of the community and share with you some of the things that are going on in our school system. Dr. Gainey, right now the big story is the weather. We're in day 3 of no school after having a day last week in which there was a delay. So just talk about the impact of the weather over these last few days.
Well, Tim, we've struggled a little bit. You know, we came back from the holiday break and we went 2 full weeks and concluded the first semester. And then we had a holiday on January 18th, Martin Luther King holiday. And then we had 2 teacher work days, 19th and 20th, and in the first day of second semester, we started the day late because of weather concerns, and then we've not been back in school since. We missed Friday and then Monday and today, which makes 3 days. But so it's, you know, we really hadn't got second semester started. You know, it's been, you know, that's been a struggle because everybody was geared up and ready to go. But we'll come out on the other side of it with the weather. One of the things I always say is you got to be patient. You don't want to jeopardize anybody's safety, and hopefully we'll get back in school soon. Temperatures have risen, but it has been almost a daily, you know, watching daily and what does the next day bring. We did get a lot of ice and snow, and we have a lot of roads that are in bad shape. Hopefully today they'll clear up some more, and we may have some better news for tomorrow in the future days as far as getting back in school. But you just can't ignore the safety issue, and you also, to me, when the weather hits like this, you can't get impatient. That's the biggest thing, because when you get impatient, then people's safety starts being jeopardized.
Right. Well, certainly inclement weather impacts everyone, the students and their families, and you know, it impacts you as a superintendent. You've also been a principal and a teacher. And so much of what we do is based upon routine. When you have a disruption to that routine, can you just talk about what it's like for those in the schools, whether it's a teacher or a principal, when they have that kind of disruption to their schedule?
Well, teachers, one of the big things you know, with the teachers, they'll be adjusting lesson plans because they have curriculum they have to get covered, you know, whether it be a year-long course at elementary and middle school, where they're going year-long and they have certain standards they have to get through curriculum-wise, or the high schools are starting with the block schedule. The students have just started new courses, so they'll have to adjust some lesson plans. It will impact. One of the things that does come into play is the athletic schedules are really impacted when this happens, whether it be the practice schedules or, you know, obviously we've now, with tonight being Tuesday, January 26th, Tuesday night's a big basketball night. Friday night, the 22nd was a big basketball night. Fridays and Tuesdays at the high school level, and not even getting into the middle school level. We had a middle school wrestling tournament that was supposed to be this past weekend that was canceled and had to be moved to this upcoming weekend. So that's where it gets real tough, because the number of play-in dates to make up games with, and you know, we're not far off from the state playoffs at the high school level or the end of the season at the middle school level. So it gets tough there. And then we have performing arts events that get moved around, and so it'll be some stress on principals and you know, staff members, coaches, band directors, course teachers. It'll be some stress, but we'll work through it. And it goes back to that, you know, you just can't get impatient with the weather and risk people's safety. That's the big thing.
Well, and we've talked about how the month of January is a bit unorthodox, just the way that it plays out on the calendar. And one of those things is our Board of Education meeting. We typically have those the 3rd Monday of the month, but in January we did the 2nd Monday on January the 11th. So some highlights from the Board of Education meeting. Actually, prior to that meeting, we had a very special meeting with the county commissioners, an annual meeting. So I know you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Tim, I say it has been one of my favorite nights, if not my favorite night of each of my years. The January meeting is exciting because we started this back in January of 2014. The commissioners have come over during our work session at that meeting, and we've talked then about what our budget requests were going to be for the, when we get to the spring, we make budget requests for the upcoming school year. So that happened again on January the 11th. It's a great opportunity. We get to sit in the room and just have conversation with them. I've mentioned this many times. They are very supportive of our school system, and I look forward to that because I just, I appreciate and value their time and appreciate them being willing to come in and just sit and talk with us. And so another thing it does for our board and for our staff is in January we're putting out what they're going to hear from us in the spring. And it was a great meeting, great interaction with our board and the commissioners. And I just think, as one thing that I've talked about, is we're trying to build a positive relationship with our commissioners, and it was another step in that positive relationship based on trust and transparency with them. And I left there just like I have the 2 previous Januaries, and excited. I walked in just like I have the 2 previous Januaries, excited to have the opportunity to sit down and talk with them. And so we were able to put what our budget requests are going to be out on the table and talk about them, and they had a chance to ask questions. They obviously will ask questions later in the spring when we do the formal presentation to them at their meeting, but it was a great night.
Okay. So then, following the work session and meeting with the commissioners and the board members, we then had our regular monthly board meeting. A number of things on the agenda there. One of the things that was presented was Path to Pride, which is the strategic plan for our school system. Could you just give our community an update on what that is and where we are with that?
Well, Tim, the Path to Pride is our strategic plan, and what we've been doing over the last couple of months is we've gone through and done a review or conducted a review with different groups. And we did that the other night, and we have not gotten through any group's review because it takes a while. We're going through each one of the strategic directives and all. But we've talked through it with the principals and their groups at principal meetings, assistant principals. We're working with the board, just getting feedback on different aspects as we move to what a future version of that plan would be, because obviously over time you make adjustments. So we've also talked to the Ambassadors for Education, which is our parent group. It's one parent from every school. We've started that review process with them. Our teacher leader group, which is one teacher from every school. And those 2 groups, the ambassadors and the teachers, I meet with them every other month. And staff is in that meeting with me, some of the leadership team members. But we've started that process, and so it's been very exciting to hear their feedback, to bring the level of awareness of what's actually in the plan and what they've seen play out over the last 2.5 years, and what the future version of that plan looks like. And so that's what we took another couple steps with the board the other night, going through the review process. And we still have some work, because I think we may be through 3 of the strategic directives with the board, but that's about where every group is right now in the review process.
Okay, and another big thing that we've got going on, and in fact the Courier Tribune did a nice feature this past Sunday on the accreditation process. Both Asheboro City Schools and our own school system are going through this. We've talked about it previously, but could you just give us a little bit of an update of what it is and where we are with that?
Well, the accreditation process is huge for a school system, because it pretty much designates a school system as meeting what I consider universal standards for school systems that earn the respect beyond not only the borders of our county and the borders of our state, but throughout the nation when you're an accredited school system. So looking forward to that process. With that process, we're going to learn, obviously, hopefully some positives about some things we're doing right, but obviously we're going to learn some things that we need to work on and improve upon. We're at the process now where all of the schools have submitted their stuff, and Cat Berry's leading this process, so stuff is beginning to be uploaded to the Advanced Ed group. An external review team will come in. They'll come in March 13 through 16. The 13th is a Sunday night, and I will meet with them that night with Ms. Berry. And then they'll be in the school system, in schools, and talking to different groups in the school system during the week, during that first part of the week, March 14, 15, and 16. And then it all ends on the 16th. Our board meeting, Tim, that month in March is going to be the Wednesday night, the March 16th night, because at the beginning at 3:30, we're going to be starting a little early. We usually start work session at 4:30. We're moving it up at 3:30 that day. They'll do their reporting out to the board that day. So one thing of note of the calendar is, number one, our March meeting is on Wednesday instead of a Monday. So it's March 16th, and it starts at 3:30, the work session instead of 4:30. And so our board meeting that night obviously will move up an hour because of the way the time is. So we'll start our board meeting that night at 5:30. But it's an exciting time. It's to me, it's another thing when we talk about transparency a lot. This is another opportunity to be very transparent to an outside group, and with transparency, you have to be willing to take the good and I don't know if I'll say the bad, but the good and what needs to be worked on to get better. So we'll come out of that with hopefully some things that feedback on some things we're doing good for kids, but also some things that we need to improve upon for kids.
Okay. Dr. Gainey, a few moments ago we talked about just the month of January and it being a different kind of month. But right there in the middle of all that was exam week. And of course that's a big week for the students and for all of us during the school year. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, exam week went very well. I mean, we got lucky. It happened before the weather came. And if I'm thinking right, or remembering right, I think that we may have just had our first exam week in the middle of the year that wasn't impacted by weather since I've been here. The January exam week is always tough, or exam period is always tough with the winter weather. But one thing I was really proud of, Tim, that I think is kind of, I look at a lot of things as how are we doing business that will impact us positively for years on out. And one thing I was very proud of the school staffs, and I start with, Sharon Johnson and our accountability department in testing. She and Carrie Hewlin and Cynthia McFadden worked very hard in that area. Kim Johnson, director of high schools, and the high school principals and their staffs got together, and they really pared exam week back to 4 days this year. And that was huge because what that does is it puts more days of instruction back in. Mm-hmm. Exam week was several more days prior to, as far as length from beginning to end in previous years, and they really worked hard. And so I just have the highest praise for the testing group, Kim Johnson, high school director, Nancy Cross, forgot her, she has the CTE testing under her, and then those high school principals and their staffs, because that's not a small undertaking. You have staffs that really work hard every day, but when testing starts, I mean, you have your state test, you have your teacher-made test when there's not a state test associated with it, and it's just there's a big coordination or planning of where kids need to be and when they need to be, and a big thank you goes to the parents and the students. I've always believed the students do best when they take the exams on the scheduled date, and based on what I have received back, our attendance was very, very high on those days at the high schools. And so now we the early college, because their schedule, they took their exams before the holiday break. But we had 6 high schools that did their exam week in 4 days, and that was huge. Mm-hmm. And I just, I've tried to make a note of that as much as I could have, run into these individuals in the last couple of days out in the community, but that is something that has really caught my attention, and I just want to say thank you for the staff, central service staff, and school-based staff for their great effort there. And then again, you can't exclude the kids or the parents for their response to it. You can do all the planning you want to at a school, but you've got to get the students and parents to respond. And so I think it was an overall team effort by all groups.
All right, so then Dr. Gainey, as we wrap this up, then I'll just, if I may, just turn it over to you for a moment and let you share with us some highlights and some things coming up that of note.
Well, Tim, a highlight that I want to say, and I want to, with you here, I just want to say to staff what I've seen with our weather and our communications, and we always have room for improvement, but I think we've got a system out there, and the parents, I want to say thank you to them because I believe that they're finding the avenue that's, they prefer for communication, especially with the weather. But, I appreciate what staff has done. Marty Trotter, we've had these weather announcements, and Marty Trotter has our phone message going out. You have been able to get the message out on Facebook and Twitter and on our webpage. We have a couple staff members that have really done great work getting to the radio stations and TV stations. So, and all that's great when you have a plan, but it also, it's back to the thing about exams. It has to work for everybody, and I appreciate the parents and the community. They have been very responsive in seeing these different areas and helping us share the information out when they pick it up off a web page or the phone message or Facebook or Twitter. So thank you to your group, and it leads that charge as far as making those announcements, and I think it's worked very well. Using the social media avenues and the other avenues we've always used. A couple highlights that are coming up. We have our school system spelling bee on February 2nd, Sunset Theater. Mm-hmm. I think the start time's at 4:30. All county band for middle school and high school band is at Asheboro High School on the 26th of February. And I'm thinking the start time is 7:30, and it'd be good to have that event, because if I'm not mistaken, last year the weather led to the cancellation of that event. We tried to reschedule it, and we just couldn't make it work, and we had to cancel, if I'm remembering right. So we've got some exciting things coming for students. The high school athletics gets a lot of the showcase and throughout the year, but one of the most special events I've seen in this county is the middle school basketball tournament. That's coming up this weekend. It's going to be the semifinals and finals will be Friday night and then Saturday, and they're at Providence Grove High School. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking about scheduling conflicts, there's a middle school wrestling tournament that was supposed to be on January 23rd, last Saturday, and it's been moved to January 30th. This upcoming Saturday. That'll be at Wheatmore High School, and that's a pretty much all-day event. I think the time on that one's 9 to 4. On the middle school basketball tournament, I'm thinking the finals start at 6, but I'm not sure on Saturday night, and maybe the semifinals start about 4. But that has gone to another venue. The previous 2 years it's been at Asheboro High School, and this year the middle school basketball tournament's going to be at Providence Grove High School. So I want to say on that end, to the athletic directors at middle school level, and Rick Doss, who's our county athletic director, he works very hard with all of this and scheduling, and it's he's done a great job. And I don't think anybody's job, the weather doesn't help with the planning in any way. It just interferes with it. But Rick stays on top of things, and our middle school athletic directors and our high school athletic directors are very involved in watching the weather as well, because when we cancel school or let out early, we that shuts down everything for that day, unless we have an unusual situation. So.
All right. Well, then it sounds like we're moving into the second semester. Things are heating up, and hopefully heating up enough to thaw out some of this ice, and we can get back into a routine. But thank you again each month for taking the time to share your thoughts and share some highlights with us. Thank you to Randolph Communications, as always. And we look forward to seeing you again in February.